Hello and welcome to another edition of What Does the Giraffe Say Media with me, Kathleen Ratorne. We're an organisation that aims to connect people with conservation by holding live interviews on social media. Today, I am delighted because I am joined by Loti and Dale from Weiler Woods for Wildlife. So I'm going to hand over to you guys. If you could talk a little bit about yourself, what sparked your passion for wildlife, and how you joined forces. So Dale, maybe we'll start with you.
Fair enough. I'm Dale Weiler.
And I'm Loti Woods.
And together we are Weiler Woods for Wildlife. We always start that way. A little background on myself. I am a sculptor, a stone sculptor. I had been many things before this. I was a Navy pilot for a number of years and then went into consulting. But my real love was art and sculpture. So I got into sculpture later in life, probably in my late 40s, early 50s. And stone was my medium. So I started sculpting stone, and I am very familiar with wildlife. I grew up surrounded by wildlife. My father was an avid hunter and fisherman and a painter. So I spent a lot of time in the outdoors, and it's what I love to do, is sculpt what I've loved.
And I moved to North Carolina about 8 years ago, which is where we live now. And I have always loved nature. So I love to write too. So I'm sort of a blogger and outdoors person. And, Dale and I met about 7 years ago. I walked into one of his art shows. He wasn't actually supposed to be there. He was supposed to be up in New York at another art show, but one of his pieces had been broken, so he didn't go to New York. And I sort of drugged myself out of the house and went to this art show and literally walked in, looked at him across the room, and it was love at first sight.
Both ways.
Both ways. And after 8 days, we got engaged and got married shortly thereafter. And then we sort of looked at each other and said, okay, now what are we going to do? We both have a passion for wildlife. How can we make a difference? We were both in our 60s when we met. So, that old saying, it's never too late. It's never too late to fall in love. And it's also never too late to, follow your passion and make a difference. So we looked at each other and we said, hey, let's use Dale's art and my writing, and let's start Weiler Woods for Wildlife. And that's where we are today as far as trying to focus on wildlife and habitat. Mm-hmm. And we've got a real special focus on the underdogs because they don't get enough credit.
And I had really burned out in the art world, going to shows, hawking my wares, and the energy was really, really waning. So when Loti came into my life, it just renewed that energy and got my passion going again. And it gave me and both of us a real purpose.
So how we got started in actual underdog wildlife was we saw this picture on Facebook of rocks in a stream. And my sister had actually posted that picture. And we were like, oh, that is so cool. Zen rocks in the stream. And then somebody posted, do you know when you put rocks in the stream and move them that you are killing hellbenders?
And we looked at each other and said, what the hell
is a hellbender?
And same. Yeah, fair.
We never heard of them. And we looked them up, and turns out that they live in our streams in North Carolina. And we were like, and so then somebody put a video on of all about hellbenders. And we said, we've got to make a difference in hellbenders. And so Dale decided that he would go out in his rock pile, which he has this giant rock pile outside, and see if he saw a hellbender.
It's my candy store. And how that worked is I collect rocks, and I don't really know what's inside them until they speak to me. Sounds strange, but it's true. And I'd been looking at this piece of stone for over 10 years and never saw anything because I'd never seen a hellbender before. And when I saw it, I went, there it is. It's peeking its head out. So I went after it.
And so for those who are watching and they're like, what the hell is a hellbender? Do you want to explain what it is and why they're important?
Well, they are really the canary of the coal mine. They live in only the freshest fresh water. It's got to be perfectly clean, perfectly clear.
And basically, it's the second largest salamander in the world. So these salamanders get to be about 2 feet long,
2.5
or 2.5 feet long, and they live under rocks and streams from New York all the way down to Alabama. And if you see them in a stream, you know that you have
That
clean
water is pure.
water. And so without clean water, the Hellbender, they're currently threatened in the United States. And one of the things that we loved about Dale doing this Hellbender sculpture is, you're not going to put a Hellbender sculpture in your living room, or most people aren't.
Unless you're very
especially
strange.
since it weighed like 500 pounds. So we was trying to figure out, what do you do with a Hellbender sculpture? And we had been working with the North Carolina Zoo and talked to them about donating it to the zoo. Something that we didn't expect to happen was that the zookeepers that take care of the Hellbender and the folks that build exhibits,
All the habitats.
all got together and said, hey, we've got this awful Hellbender exhibit. It's old, it's tired. And, Dale and Loti are going to donate the sculpture. We want to redo the Hellbender, exhibit.
Well, the overall aquarium that housed not just Hellbenders, but freshwater fish.
Yeah, native fish. And so they all got together and lobbied management and said, we need some funding to redo this. So they ended up redoing the aquarium for the Hellbenders and the native fish. They put Dale's sculpture right down in front. It's at kids level so they can touch it. They put in a touch screen to learn about salamanders for kids. They even did the floor in a pattern that looks like pebbles in a stream, and they have lights running over it, and it's kind of damp in there because of the aquarium. So when you touch this sculpture, it feels
right. The cool part about the the environment in this is that it's very cool for the Hellbenders and the fish, and it's a very humid area. So dew falls and builds on all the surfaces. So dew gets on this sculpture and it makes it slick. And the Hellbender is affectionately known as the snot otter. It kills you a lot. So people can actually touch it and it feels slick. So it's a wonderful tactile experience for the viewers.
So as a result of this new exhibit, we went over for the unveiling of the exhibit. And while we were there, Chris Lasher, who works for the North Carolina Zoo, came over and tapped us on the shoulder and he said, I have something I want to show you. And we got in his truck and we went over to an area that's off exhibit, and we went sort of behind the scenes, and we were introduced to 2 little pups that turned out to be red wolf pups. And we had, again, never heard of a red wolf. So here we've learned about a new animal, Hellbenders, and we're learning about a new animal, red wolves. And it was, again, sort of like Dale and I, it was love at first sight.
Yep.
I mean, we fell in love with these little pups. And then Chris went on to tell us that the only place in the entire world that red wolves live is in North Carolina.
Our home state.
Our home state in eastern North Carolina. And at the time, this was about 4 years ago, there were less than 20 in the wild. And at that moment, we realized this is the most critically endangered wolf canine in the world.
Yep.
And we knew that we needed to dedicate a large part of our life to trying to help save them. And
talking about that, so what are the threats that they're facing? Why are the red wolves important?
Well, the old myths, the wolf ate my baby or ate my grandmother. There are a lot of misconceptions about wolves. They're feared, they're reviled, and they were exterminated. The gray wolves, the Mexican grays, the red wolves in the East. So it was out of fear and a lack of understanding about how important and how special these animals are.
well, they're important to the environment because they're an apex predator. So they're at the top of the food chain, and they are keeping
Things in
other
balance.
animals in balance. For example, they're doing studies right now to show that the quail population, which was under pressure, is now rebounding,
And the
deer population, because the wolves are eating raccoons and possums. They're eating the quail eggs or the sea turtle eggs. And the wolves are only really taking the weaker deer. So they're actually improving the health of the herd. And they have camera trap to prove this, that there are more deer now
And
where
more
the
quail.
wolves are. And the other side benefit that wolves have is, there's a lot of angst about coyotes in the United States sort of taking over. And where you have red wolves, you generally will not have coyotes.
They will
Because
keep them away.
the red wolf is the top
The apex.
predator. So they're really important to the environment. And people have, their habitat is being smushed like every animal in the world. You've had people, killing them because they feared, like Dale said, that they're going to eat your grandmother or your baby.
And a fact is that today there has never been a human killed by a red wolf. So that is a fact.
Right. I don't think there's ever even been an attack. And oh, by the way, we do have our red wolf t-shirts on.
Go Red
I think
Wolf.
you can see.
We're wearing our color.
Absolutely love it. So when you got together, you've got a lovely little love story. It's amazing. But then also, why did you decide, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the misunderstood wildlife, and what animals do you then, following from that, deem to be misunderstood?
Well, starting out, I had been doing a lot of work over in Africa, had done some African wildlife art. And it's always the shiny object. You look for the biggest and the most exciting, and that gets all the attention. And when Loti and I got together, we were focusing on the more prevalent, the more well-advertised animals.
Charismatic.
And charismatic. Yeah, that's a good word. And then we started to learn about these less charismatic animals that just don't get the press, like hellbenders, like red wolves, like bats and vultures. And we realized they are as important, in some instances, more important than these more charismatic animals. So we decided, let's focus on those and give them more attention.
Right. And also, I, as a kid, I was always that geeky, gawky kid.
Hard to
so
believe.
I always like to think I was sort of the misunderstood kid, when they had, when they picked kids for, teams for kickball or whatever, I was always the last kid standing, and the two captains were arguing over who was going to get stuck with me, because I was so bad. And so, I have a big heart for the misunderstood, because I was sort of that misunderstood kid growing up.
And I completely agree with you. There's it's very easy for your elephants, your rhinos, your lions, your tigers. They're very charismatic animals. They get a lot of attention. And the smaller species and the ones that aren't necessarily deemed as pretty do get a lot of, no attention, basically. And they're the ones that are also helping the ecosystem. What kind of common misunderstandings are you hearing about certain wildlife? And following from that, on the flip side, what's the strangest misunderstanding that you've heard?
Well, I think, as Dale mentioned, one of the common misunderstandings is that wolves, red wolves in particular, are dangerous, and they're not. They're not going to hurt you. They're generally not even going to go after your pets or your chickens, because they don't want to be anywhere around people.
Right.
They are very shy animals. And so that's been a big misconception.
And they live in small numbers, very, very small numbers.
They're
not
family
large
units.
packs.
They're not big packs. So they're going to be two parents and maybe the kids from one litter, and then maybe the kids from the next litter. And then other misconceptions, we talk about bats quite a bit. Bats are going to fly in your hair. No, they don't fly in your hair. Bats are going to give you rabies. Well, guess what? They're not. I mean, you can get rabies from them, but less than 0.5% of bats have rabies, and they eat 1,000 mosquitoes in an hour.
Yes.
So we want bats
They
in
are
our
vacuum
yard.
cleaners.
Possums are ugly, and we don't want them near us, but yet they eat 5,000 ticks a year and can help your family not get Lyme's disease.
Or Rocky Mountain disease. And another one is vultures. I mean, vultures are reviled. They just think that they're dirty, ugly characters, but they are flying vacuum cleaners, and they keep our environment healthy.
So one of the fun misconceptions, is vultures actually poop on their legs, and
Sort of counteracts what I just said about vultures.
Well, they're actually, they poop on their legs to keep themselves cool while they're cleaning up the environment. So, there's some fun little facts out there that, are misconstrued. So we like to point those out as fun.
I always like to think of vultures as being like nature's dustman men, basically. They're coming around and cleaning up and stopping stuff growing and building, and, you know, stray dogs and blah, blah, blah. So they are an incredible species, and I think they're incredibly misunderstood. So what do you do when you've decided this animal is misunderstood, you've decided that you want to make a difference? How do you then go about educating and trying to change these misunderstandings?
Well, the first thing we do is we educate ourselves, because a lot of these animals we've seen, but we really don't know anything about. So we hit the internet and we talk to experts, and we find out about where they live, what their purpose is, how they fit in, and we get a better understanding of the good part that they offer, the threats that they're under. And then we start looking at who is out there who is trying to help, and we try to partner with those organizations to see how we can assist them in doing their job.
Well, and we use our website. So I do blog articles on, for example, red wolves. You'll find a number of articles on red wolves. We do social media. We've been very honored to have pictures from lots of the breeding facilities for red wolves that we're able to use on our Facebook or Instagram account, and spread the word that, you know, these are really important animals and they're not going to eat your grandmother. So that's another way.
Right.
And visiting facilities that have them, you know, so the red wolf is really where we've spent most of our time for the last year, and where we will be spending most of our time. Right now, we were on a call just this week, and the numbers in the wild are between 17 and 15. And that's being generous. Now, the good news is they're going to release 9 wolves this winter that have been in human care. So that's really going to help the population. Mm-hmm. But, you know, we're going to be focusing our efforts. So, you know, we meet, as Dale said, with the experts, and we go visit facilities that are breeding them and learn all we can about it, and then share that information with you know, Facebook friends. And
the other thing that I do is I go out to my rock pile and I find what's out there and see if that specific species speaks to me. And sure enough, I always find it. And once I find it in the stone, then I go after it and I create it. For example, this is the first red wolf piece that I did. I'd been looking at that piece for probably 15 years and didn't know what was inside it until I saw a red wolf. And once that piece is done, then Loti and I take that and find out where is the best place for that piece to get the maximum public exposure for red wolves, and we donate it.
And so in this case, what we did is we met with several experts and said, instead of just having one sculpture, let's make castings of it. And so we had fiberglass castings made of the red wolf,
original, and
we've donated those to 38 facilities around the country. That now, if you go see a red wolf habitat in any zoo or conservation organization, chances are you're going to see Dale's sculpture there. And it's got signage around it of talking about what red wolves are, because they're so shy that a lot of times you won't see them in the exhibit. Mm-hmm. So you can look at Dale's sculpture and you can see what a pup looks like, and you can see what the mother looks like. So that's been really, we've learned so much and met so many passionate people. This is at the picture you've got up right now is at the Tallahassee Museum. We were just down there a couple weeks ago, and this was their installation, and they have a breeding pair. So we're hoping that they'll have pups this spring.
And as Loti said, that there will be 38 of these castings across the country. There are 44 breeding facilities for red wolves around the U.S., from the East Coast to the West Coast and from north to south. Each of them are playing a role in breeding red wolves that will hopefully eventually be rewilded. And there are how many red wolves?
There are 230 in human care. So
a large portion of which will hopefully be released. And it's our way of just giving back and thanking these folks for doing the amazing job that they are to rewild these animals that should be on our landscape.
So we've got a question coming through from Alison Jeremy. Hi, Alison. Thank you for joining in. And she's asking, what are the enclosures like that the red wolves are kept in?
Generally there are half-acre habitats that have trees in them and bushes
And water.
And water. A lot of them have, sort of little waterfall features. So it's very much like the habitat they would be living at in the wild.
And they give them enough space so that they can feel as if they are in the wild and that they can separate from humans. And a lot of these habitats are kept out of public view to give these animals as much privacy as possible. You don't want to habituate these animals. You don't want to get them so comfortable with social interaction that they don't act correctly when they are released in the wild.
Sure. And we got another question coming through from Winnie. Hi, Winnie. She was actually the one that actually set us up talking with you guys. So lovely to see you. And she's asking, what can folks do to help red wolves who live out of the United States?
And, Winnie's in Scotland. And what we've found as we have done Facebook posts, we have met people all over the world. And just like we all love elephants, I mean, who doesn't love elephants? We don't have any elephants in the United States, but yet we support them. So, making everybody aware in all the countries of the American red wolf and that it is the most endangered wolf in the world. Mm-hmm. And that's been really helpful to have, folks in Scotland and the UK and Uganda, spreading the word just as we spread, it about elephants here. So spreading the word is really, important because so many people don't know about them. And when we lived in North Carolina and we didn't know about them, that tells you what the problem is.
And it's amazing the interconnectivity of everything. You look at migratory birds that live all over the world, insects that live all over the world.
We're all connected.
Yes, everything. Yeah, everything is connected. So we need everyone around the world lending a helping hand.
Yeah, I completely agree. And since you've been doing your displays, your education and those kind of things, have you seen a change in attitude, and how have you seen, if you have, that attitude change?
It's been amazing to see just the light coming on in a number of people's eyes about, I didn't know that. It's just not being aware. And then getting people who were afraid or disliked a specific animal all of a sudden saying, wow, possums are cool. Yeah. Or bats are really, really important and I have to be more respectful of them.
Or I need to put a bat house. We have people that were afraid of bats before we started talking to them, and now they're putting bat houses up in their backyards.
Yes.
So we have seen a significant change. It's all about that education. Mm-hmm. you can't protect an animal that you don't love, and you can't love an animal that you don't know about.
Yeah. 100% agree. We got a question coming through from Stacey Satterfield. Hi, Stacey. She's a regular viewer. Always wonderful to see her. And she's saying, once released in the wild, do you know what type of federal protection the wolves will get to avoid human-wildlife conflict?
Well, they are protected. They are an endangered species. They're considered critically endangered. So it is against the law to hunt them. And unfortunately, last year there were some releases, and a number of those wolves were hit by cars. So that was really the main cause of death last year. So this year they're releasing them earlier, where there's not as much traffic out in the area where they're going to be released. And they have put up a lot of signs that say, wildlife crossing, wildlife, please slow down, wildlife in the area. So there's a lot of people working really hard to make sure that when these wolves are released, that they have every chance. And I think they've even been doing some work with those wolves to make them, scared of car noises.
Right. Conditioning them. And it's a learning process. You never get it right the first time. So the U.S. Fish and Wildlife have been learning from the problems that they've had in the past. They're looking at maybe making corridors now so that wild animals can cross under or over roadways so that they don't get hit. And as Loti was mentioning, having signs and warnings for people to slow down.
Yep.
And they're also the thing they're doing different this year too is they are releasing two pairs that have been together. So, they won't just go out and start trying to look for a mate. They're already paired. And they're also releasing one family
Full
unit
families.
of 5 wolves that have been now together for a couple of years. So that's really encouraging. So a lot of really positive things. It's a good time to be shouting the word of red wolves.
Right. And the other thing that's being done now is the education side of it.
Right.
Is they are trying to let the landowners know how important these animals are and why they need to be on the landscape. That's probably something that wasn't done as well as it should have been to start with, to get people to buy into it, to say, we want them here. It's not that we're worried about it, but we'd love to have them
But
here.
it's being done now.
And so it is. So
there's a lot of positives.
They're improving.
And we've got another question coming through, and they're asking, it's Alison again. She's asking, will you eventually print a book on the red wolves to raise awareness?
Great question. Thanks, Allison.
Yes, thanks.
There are lots of books out actually on red wolves. There's The Secret Lives of Red Wolves, which, we highly encourage folks to read. It just depends. We don't really know where we're going to go with the red wolves. We are, I think, we can make our big announcement that we have decided, as a result of getting involved with all these underdog species and red wolves, that we are starting a nonprofit. And we're really, really excited about that, because education, art, and financial support are going to be sort of the 3 pillars of it, with red wolves as our primary
Focus right now.
focus. So, Allison, there may be a book coming down the road, but we don't know right now.
But in the meantime, Allison, I'm going to keep chipping on stone and creating more underdogs to get out to the public.
And we have another question coming through from Julie Argar, and they are asking, what's the average weight female male of the red wolf, and how does their overall size compare to the gray wolf?
The red wolves are smaller. So if you look at, you've got coyote is the smallest, and then red wolf is in between, and the gray wolves are much bigger.
Right. And probably the red wolf is, I would say,
40 to 60
40 to
pounds
60
for
pounds.
the female, and
the
60 to 70, maybe,
to 80 for the gray wolf, and then the coyote's even smaller than that. So each one is about a third larger than the other.
And then Dale, like when I was doing a bit of research into the background of you guys and what you're doing, and I recommend anyone to go check out their Facebook page and also check out their website. It's an incredible story, and there's lots of lovely information on there. But you described for you mentioned at the start that art kind of came a bit later for you, but you described it as an awakening. And then, so can you talk to us a little bit about this, and then how does this art then support conservation?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I was creating art early on to sell, and it didn't end up giving me very much joy. What really gave me joy was seeing people connect to that artwork, and then opening their eyes to how important that species is that I was sculpting. And I guess the greatest joy I get in the art is when it really impacts someone. And one story that
we had this amazing thing happen. We had some Girl Scouts who wanted to come see what a sculptor does in the studio. And these girls came, and they were working on their wildlife badge. And Dale was working on the red wolf sculpture at the time. And they walked in, and they immediately were drawn to the sculpture. They wanted to know what he was doing, what this animal was, where did it live? And they'd never seen a red wolf before. And these little girls, again, North Carolina, well, they fell in love with red wolves just from looking at his sculpture.
Like we were smitten.
And I mean, they went into a little huddle, and they came back and they said, we want to dedicate our fall fundraiser to red wolves. And fast forward 3 years later, these girls are now doing their year-long project on red wolves. And they're talking to Rotary clubs about red wolves. And it was the first time I really saw a piece of art just completely pull people in and touch their hearts in a way that I had never seen before. So that's like one of our favorite stories. And we still see these girls all the time now, and we share with them Red Wolf stories and Red Wolf information, and then they're sharing it with their friends.
And so I've pulled up your website address onto the screen, but if people are watching back home and they're thinking, okay, I want to support you guys, you're doing some great work, what's the best way to go about that? How can people support you?
Well, I think right now, until we get our nonprofit up and running, which is going to take us several months, is, go to our website and, get in touch with us and let us know. We're going to be looking for volunteers. We're always looking for great pictures of, animals in the wild. So if you have pictures that we can share, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, sign up for our newsletter.
And we're looking for people to spread the word.
Right. And so, get in touch with us. That's the best way you can help, and let us know how you can help. Winnie reached out to us, and she's become one of our dearest, closest friends, and has helped us in so many ways. And we've met so many great people, but we don't know you're out there if you don't contact us. So that's the best thing you can do, is shoot us an email. Our emails are on the website. Pick up the phone and call us. Just let us know that you're out there, and how, what animals you want to see protected, and how you can spread the word.
And what touches your heart.
Right.
And stay curious. I mean, there's so much to see out there that we just overlook, but there's some really cool things out there if you just take your time and look around.
And I think I agree with you. A lot of people think, it takes money to help with conservation, but actually sometimes it's just a case of a little bit of your time, to like, comment, share, trying to raise awareness, because some people may not be aware of the situation of the red wolves or the bats or whatever, right? So, and then by them seeing this, it may hope to raise awareness. So if you are watching this back home, please do give it a like, comment, and share, because the more people see, the more awareness that we can raise for this incredible work that they're doing. Okay, so I only have one more question left. I always like to try and end on a bit of positive note. But if you have a question that you would like to put to Loti or Dale, then please do just pop it in the comments section, and I will be able to do exactly that for you. So I would like to know what your favorite success story is.
I think the favorite success story is that we have been able to get 38 of these castings in different red wolf breeding facilities. As far as I know, there's no other artist that has been able to, donate so much art for one species that so many people can see when they go to a zoo or a conservation center. And that, I think, has been the best success story. And then we always like to say, and we met each other.
That's right. That's got to be my best success story, is meeting Loti, who has certainly changed my life and given me direction. And it's the idea of just two people. What can they do? And the reality that you don't have to do too much to make a difference. Yep. And Loti and I jumped into this not knowing what we were going to be doing, what direction we were taking, but just learning along the way, and then finding out that you can make a difference, either as an individual or a few people or a larger group. It doesn't take much to make a difference.
You just have to do it and not, worry about it and plan it. Just like we always say, jump and hope the net is there. And so far, the net's always been there for us.
And if the passion is there, you're going to jump, and you're going to keep jumping.
I completely agree. I mean, I think some people get a little bit intimidated and thinking it's such a big task, but actually just small steps can make a huge difference. We've had some lovely comments as we've been talking, lots of support from all around the world, all different continents, all cheering you on and saying thank you for the work that you're doing. And I've absolutely adored talking to you both. I think I've fallen in love with you both, as well as you two falling in love with each other.
Well, thank you, Kathleen, for having us on your show. This is a lot of fun.
Is there anything that you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Just get out there and do it.
That's right. Stay curious and spread the word.
Completely agree. And again, everyone, thank you back home for watching. We've absolutely loved having you joining in. And thank you for all your kind comments, your likes, and your shares. again, it makes a huge difference to raise awareness. But for me, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Kathleen. What a pleasure. Thank you all.